Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The 100. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, we finally get to see the side of things of when Octavia went to Bardo originally. And I like it's like, 45 days ago. I'm like, oh God, here we go. We're doing that time stuff. Oh, this is going to start messing with my head because it's like, this is 45 days ago Sanctum time, which I guess that's kind of implying... Well, no, because I was about to say, I thought it was kind of implying that Sanctum and Bardo in the same time. Like, they're not. Like, and we even got an explanation for that later on of like why Octavia obviously did. I figured as much. It had to be the suits. I knew it had to be the suits, but it's specifically the helmets. I mean, it's not just the whole like tech about like, well, lets you pinpoint where you want to go, gives you all this information. You can turn, invisible or camouflage. You can go ghost. I mean, that's all pretty badass in itself, but obviously it keeps your memories in check. So I figured as much, but it's interesting to see like how we got there. It's just interesting, and just once again, it's just like the fact of the matter is Octavia went in and then she bounced right back out. We saw that last season, and now we see everything that happened in a blink of an eye for Gabriel was literally like what was it like in grand total? It was like 14 days for Octavia. I mean, like, it's mind blowing in the grand scheme of things. So obviously she gets hooked up to Machine. I should also note, I guess because they label him as like the first disciple. It's played by Neil McDonough. I was like, what? I saw his name in the intro, so I was like, that's nuts. Obviously, most recently, Damien Dark in the Arrowverse. What's interesting too is he was in Van Helsing. He's a little bit in season 3. He's in a lot more in season 4. Interestingly enough, who else is also in this episode? Jonathan Scarf, who plays Axel in Van Helsing. I don't think they ever had any scenes together in Van Helsing. To my recollection, I might be misremembering, but for them to be on screen now together, I'm just like, oh, that's so interesting. How funny how that works out like that. Nevertheless, tangents and all that. But there's that guy that's looking after Octavia, trying to get into her mind. They're like slowly, like obviously using the machine to kind of, dive into her memories. And at first I brought that up before. I was like, is that how they know as much as they do? Did they break into Octavia's head so they knew all this? But it's like, no, they know about stuff way before now. It's not like it's just new. It's like this happened. So the question then becomes like, okay, so how do they know what they know? It's like the big question. And obviously Octavia was fighting it, over and over again. But it turns out what they want at the end of the day is Clark, because Clark is some key. Like the whole conversation about you're going to be important to the final war that humanity's ever going to have to wage. We don't know what that war is necessarily. But obviously it seems like Clark is going to be an important role. In fact, she's the most important role. She's the key. And I'm wondering, why is that? Why is Clark so important? Because even Octavia was wondering about that. But what was interesting, though, is the guy that's going through her mind, he actually starts kind of like, he actually cares about Octavia, because he's just kind of like, it's not the same, but you can't help but think a little bit of like the whole situation between Octavia and Lincoln. I literally had to look up his name because I'd actually completely forgotten. I was like, oh, it's just such a bummer, because obviously the actor who plays Lincoln, I think is Ricky Whittle, on American Gods. But it's still, regardless, the fact of the matter is I literally was blanking on Lincoln's name. Regardless, like it almost seemed like it was a little bit of something like that starting to a slight extent. I mean, it's almost like the inverse of her and Lincoln to a certain extent, because obviously he was held captive first and she grew attached to him and took care of him. He opened up to her. So it's almost a similar situation. Once again, I'm probably reading too much into it, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. But the fact of the matter is, the moment he started getting to Hope memories, it's like, wait, there was a kid on Penance with you. She's like, it's Skyring, you idiot. And he's like, oh, I really like that name. But she's like, if you leave Hope's memories alone, my memories of Hope, you keep them away and everything, I will tell you everything. And it's like, she's like, all right, but you're not going to enjoy it. And so he starts flashing through all her memories. And I think that's so interesting, because it's like a meta level to things, because it's like him reliving her memories. Obviously it's her side of the story, so it's almost like him watching the show from a viewer perspective. And even at the point where she ends up killing Pike, he was like, yes, just because it's like, well, to be fair, I guess in looking through her memories, he knows what Pike did, so it's kind of like, oh yeah, like he deserved it. So like I said, there's almost like a fan reaction. You're just like, he's like, sorry, it's just like, you're amazing. She's like, I'm a killer. He's like, no, you're not. Yes, you might be a warrior, but everything you do is because you care about people. Like, for example, being quiet underneath that floor because you knew that if you made a sound, your mom would die and your brother would get in trouble. So you always sacrifice for the people you care about. And I thought that was kind of interesting because she was like, you don't really know me. He's like, I've spent the last 3 days inside your head, so I kind of know you pretty well. So I just thought that was interesting. And at least, and I even love her being like, well, we haven't gotten to Blood Reina yet, so let's see if that changes your mind. It's like, yeah, like memory-wise, we stopped off basically season 3's finale because that's when she killed Pike. No, that was season 4 she killed Pike, right? What was that, season 3? I'm blanking. No, because it was like, oh, what happened to Clark? Did she ever, like, when it came to the City of Light thing, it had to be it was like, yeah, it was definitely season 3's finale. She ended up killing Pike, if I remember correctly. Regardless, tangents and all that. I just thought that was just kind of interesting. And the fact is, obviously, Hope shows up because he's actually the one that told her, like, you might want to, because the fact is, like, when you get back to her, it would actually be, time works differently. So you've been here a couple of days. It's been years on penance. So I did, obviously, for her to show up and Hope to be the one that shows up and saves her. And it's so interesting because you almost see this smile across Octavia's face when she hears her be like, you do anything that I will, basically, I think she said I was like slit your throat or something like that. And she almost smiles because I think she probably, hearing Hope say that, probably made her think of like, oh, like, even though we weren't around, you kind of took after your mom. You kind of took after me to a certain extent. Because even Echo kind of said that last episode. But nevertheless, like I said, all this time stuff is interesting. But like I said, getting back to it, like, he helped them escape and everything, and he's the one that came up with the decision of like, okay, here's all that like code to basically lock on to Hope's signature. So he's the one that put it on her back, on Octavia's back and everything. He's the one that came up with the plan. This way that Hope could stay here and try and find her mom. And so that way, even though Octavia might be going back without her memories, and we've got an explanation of why specifically it happens. I think it's kind of interesting. They don't go into the ins and outs of it, but it is a thing of like, it's not just traveling to any place, it's traveling to a place with a slower time dilation, because time moves differently in Bardo. It's actually slower on Sanctum, because once again, she was gone for the blink of an eye. She was gone for a couple days. Being on Bardo was literally like she was there for like 2 weeks, and that was like the blink of an eye. Let's not forget that blink of an eye also included spending 5 years on Penance, aka Skyring, and then an extra 14 days on Bardo. Once again, this time stuff is crazy when you actually break it down and think about it like that. It's a little like overwhelming. You think about it, geez, like so many damn different literal time zones all across planets and stuff like that. It's wild. But nevertheless, I just thought that was such an interesting thing to finally explain. Like, it's specifically going to a planet with a slower time than the one you're on. And because of that, because it's basically like you end up returning to exactly where you left off. So that's why it was like an instant, because like the moment she went there, it was like she once again stepped in, stepped right back out. It's what it felt like. And so everything, all those memories are going. Obviously, it doesn't take away the experience, but it's just, I just thought that was fascinating. So that explains that side of things. And obviously, we kind of understand a little bit more, because obviously Hope eventually ended up getting captured, and the disciple was kind of like, oh yeah, I got one more job for you to bring Octavia back, because they need Octavia, because they've already kind of worked their magic to kind of get her to where they needed her to be. So I think it's also like, because they specifically needed someone that could keep, I guess, so they can learn all they can about Clark before getting her. But at the same time, they were already getting Clark. So I think it was specifically because they needed Octavia as leverage against Clark. Maybe, I don't know. He didn't really explain why he needed Octavia, even though he still said other guys, the ones that end up getting killed after Clark. So that's why I was kind of like, regardless, tangents and all that. So there's all that. Then there's the whole situation with obviously Echo, Gabriel, and Hope returning to Bardo. And I love that, like, at one point, one of them kills one of them, and he's like, "Oh, Echo, what are you doing?" She takes off her helmet. It's like, it wasn't me, and it turns out it was Hope. It's like, at this point, like, without Orlando, like, we don't really need to be sticking around, you know, don't have to worry about that. So, like, they're killing everyone. Obviously, he's not too happy about it, but it's like, hey, we got to go find, you know, the memory room, because obviously they have an insider home dude that helped Octavia. So it's like, well, Octavia and Echo. So it's like, we find him, we can get to this. So, interestingly enough, obviously, we learn a little bit more because there was a gathering and a meeting, and basically the first disciple, he's talking, and it's fascinating because we find out, like, what's also, once again, hiding the fact into who the shepherd is. We kind of find out what happened on Bardo. It is interesting, and someone had actually left a comment at the beginning of the season kind of saying, like, they were thinking, like, everyone was basically going to die at the end of the series, kind of showing that humanity would kind of repeat itself over and over again. It literally seems like they did, because it turns out the people that landed, the Bardonians, literally made the same mistake as the people on Earth. They messed it up so much that literally that facility and stuff like that is underground. Like, obviously, because Octavia was, when she was escaping, initially she thought she was outside, but then the lights turned on, so it's like, oh, it's like an artificial place. So I was like, oh, is this just supposed to be like your greenery and stuff like that? It's like, I guess it's supposed to, obviously it serves its purpose of giving them oxygen and stuff like that, but it also probably makes you feel like, hey, we're outside, when in actuality we're underground, which is which I think when you actually break it down, is very similar to the Mount Weather situation as well, you know. So it's just like, I guess this group these disciples are essentially, I mean, they're essentially, shit, it's actually interesting when you think about that. It's like Sky Crew was all was basically Sky Crew all over again. Sanctum, all that ended up being kind of the Grounders, you know, eventually Tree Crew. And it turns out that the disciples are now Mount Weather, you know. So it's like it's interesting that it's almost like this, like, repeating cycle almost. It's just like, you can see the parallels between them. I never thought about that till just now in this moment. You know, could be just overthinking about it, just think it's fascinating. But the biggest thing to pull away from that was like, oh yeah, like, by the time we got here, because, you know, why did we make it and they didn't? What happened to them? Is like, oh, they didn't have the shepherd. It's like, well, yeah, the shepherd led us here with the stone, and by the time we got here, we don't know what actually happened to the Bardonians. They were all wiped out. And then Gabriel was like, the fact of the matter is, they're not from Allegiance 3. So it's like, okay, so where did they come from? So it's like, they came, so suggest the way, I mean, not unless I misinterpreted, but he was basically saying, like, there must be a stone on Earth. They must be Earthlings that, you know, got shepherded. Like, that's why he is there. Like, he's a herald the way he is, because he shepherded some of the last of humanity off, you know, of Earth. So, which is interesting, which is like, well, I mean, to be fair, like, that group never found, I mean, maybe there, like, if you go back, there probably has been that stone, and I just don't remember it. But the fact of the matter is suggesting there might be one on Earth, which is interesting. Obviously, Hope wants to kill the dude, you know, Neil McDonough's character, simply because it's like, which is also interesting timing-wise, so I just thought about that too, because I was watching season 1 of Agent Carter, and obviously Neil McDonough, he was in the first Captain America movie, so he's in Agent Carter because of connections like that. Just regardless, it's just interesting, this whole Neil McDonough thing, because I literally watched the episode he was in today. Regardless, tangents and all that, I just thought about it. I was like, because I see him like super recently, and it's like, oh yeah, super recently as in today. Regardless, but obviously Echo stopped her, so it's like, all right, let's go try and find Bellamy, and it's like, oh, they were able to find Octavia. And we kind of understand how, like, obviously when Octavia got captured again, basically Home Dude was like, I won't be here for you, but what you need to do is don't, like, fight it too much, because it can scramble and mess up your brain, but repeat what your mom said to you, that mantra over and over again. She's like, don't be afraid. She's like, good. So get her repeating that over and over again, and by the time they find Octavia, it's like, oh, she's repeating that over and over again, which also timeline wise is interesting, because it was like, oh, that was like, she's been captured 7 days, even though it really hasn't been 7 days, even though it's actually been longer than 7 days, because it's been 5 years and 7 days to a certain extent. Once again, this time stuff is crazy. But nevertheless, and it's like, where's Bellamy? And then there's Octavia's memory where, they captured Bellamy, but Bellamy had killed some people. So it's like, no. And he had Jonathan Scarf's character. And it's like, okay, like, so she's like, I say Scarf. I think it's just Scar. I don't think it's pronounced Scarf. It might be. I always never know how to pronounce it. I've been mispronouncing this entire time. Sorry. Regardless, Octavia was telling him like, okay, I will give you all you need to know about Clark. Just let my brother go. And he's like, I'm not going to go without you. She's like, it's okay. So. Especially considering this is like after they'd made up, after he thought she was dead, to see her alive and fine again, But basically, a disciple activates a device and kind of blows some shit up, and they all get flung back, and Bellamy and Home Dude are gone, and it's like, no, which I can only assume means like they think like, oh, that means Bellamy's dead. I don't think Bellamy's dead. I believe he got probably like at the last second he probably pulled him and the dude into the portal, so they avoided it. But it was supposed to be set for Sanctum, not lest they landed somewhere else. I mean, it's supposed to be a slower time, so you never know. Like, he could be on his way back to Sanctum at the time, but it's like, in that moment, it's like, but now seeing this memory echoes like, wait, what? And obviously Gabriel's like, I'm sorry about Bellamy, and Echo loses it and start punching the dude and ends up killing him, which Hope was like, no, we need him because he could help lead us to my mom. But obviously Echo didn't care. She was just enraged by the thought that she lost. And I don't think Octavia was going to judge her too much, because like, I get it, like, you cared that much about Bellamy, but it's just like in that moment she's just breaking down screaming and just like bloody murder, it's just like, that's hard. Like, you were holding on to hope that he was still alive, and you got here just to find out you think he's dead. I know he's not as I know for a fact, but I strongly think like there's no way like he had to have like backed into like the portal at the last second or whatever. So there is that side of things. We haven't even gotten to the crazy other side of this episode, which is everything back on Sanctum. Okay, so Indra's kind of in this complicated thing because she has to be the one to kind of do all the talking, because Clark and the others are going. Granted, her daughter got taken too. Like, we don't know what that whole situation was. Like, whoever was messed. So that could have been why also Bellamy didn't make it back to Sanctum. It could be because of that too. Like, maybe at the moment, like, Clark and them were trying to get to Penance or whatever. It's the same time like Bellamy ends up flying into it and it being messed up like that. So it's probably like whoever it was blocked off access to Sanctum, so Bellamy probably got blown to one of the other bridges, through one landed on a different planet or whatever, is kind of what I'm assuming. So there's that. But nevertheless, Indra's kind of doing her thing, and obviously she has to deal. Like, obviously she's trying to do everything she can to keep the peace. The children of Gabriel, Home Dude leading them, is like, we need to kill Russell. It's like, I can't kill Russell. We need to keep him alive because we don't want the start now. We want to keep peace. Obviously, the believers have their own means of handling this, and that is like, oh, we will sacrifice ourselves. We will burn ourselves alive every hour until you set Russell free. It's like, Russell, we spared his life, that should be enough. But it's like, oh, you're locking up a god. It's like, you guys are so far up your own asses about your, it's not just belief, it's blind belief. They so wholeheartedly believe in him and stuff like that. They're willing to kill themselves for it. It's just like, he's not even a god. He's just some douchebag who used technology to extend his life, and just they perpetuated this lie for so long, sacrificing so many of your but it's like, when you believe in something so wholeheartedly like that, the truth is not going to be enough to kind of crack that, especially if the truth is as horrible as the truth really is, of like, oh, they just possess people's bodies, they're not really gods, they're using technology and fooling you into sacrificing people you care about. That's a hard pill to swallow. So you much rather think, no, I'd rather believe in what I believe in, because the truth is scary and disgusting. I don't want that. I want to believe in what I believe. Oh, the happy and bliss of believing in the primes. Regardless, so now they're in a complicated situation, because it was interesting, because even Home Dude, who's the head of like from the children of Gabriel, he tried to put the lady out, and it's like, for him, it's like, they may hate us, but those are still our people. And which you have Murphy being like, why are we bothering? Who cares? Let them kill themselves. Then we can kill Russell. They're literally the only thing keeping us from killing Russell. So it's a whole thing of like, oh, did you talk your people into? He's like, why would I tell them to do that? Which even I was like, was this like some con of his? Like, was this some kind of plan of his to kind of get them to do that? But it's like, no, they most likely did that on their own, because later on he kind of gets pissed at them for it. It's like, regardless. So it's a situation of like, all right, we need another prime to kind of convince them. Obviously, Emory is too weak from last episode to do it. So it's like, oh, guess who got to step up? And I love Murphy's like, I want the others to get back because I'm tired of playing the hero. He's supposed to go in there. It's like, which is interesting. There's also that little interaction between Indra and some of the other people from One Crew, and they're like, "Oh yeah, how's that army doing you?" And it's like, she's like, "Fine." Like, she's not saying anything because it's like, it's not an issue right now. They need to deal with this. Once again, it's just like everything's kind of falling apart. So they're trying to mend everything with a Band-Aid while the cracks are getting bigger and bigger. But the fact of the matter is, Murphy was only supposed to get them to kind of calm down until he saw that they were about to light their own children on fire, and he was like, "Are you out your damn mind?" So he actually goes in there and he gets one child out. He's like, asking the dad, "Do you want your child to die?" "Okay, fine, get them out of here," and brings the others. The guy that's, I guess, supposed to be his lover was like, "Wait, he doesn't even recognize me. I don't think this is the real him. You're a poser." So they say some like 4 pillars that you're supposed to know. Murphy doesn't know him. They kick the shit out of him. They're planning on burning him. Luckily, Emory, Indra show up in time with Russell, and he's pissed at them. Slaps one dude, starts choking the other dude. It's like, oh, the fact of the matter is he gave his blood to save my life after a fallen shot me, and he's saying all this stuff. And as Indra's about to leave, it's not till he starts saying certain words that she pauses. I was like, wait, does she? And she's looking and she's hearing him talking. I'm like, Indra knows that's not Russell. And then she ended up saying something in their language that only he would be able to understand if he wasn't Russell. And then he turns, because she's like, oh, you got a spider on your shoulder. And he kind of turns, and she's like, it's cemented in her mind, like, Shade Hater. I was like, dude. I was like, are you going to tell everybody? Because he was like, you can't kill me, because if you kill me, that's going to destroy that peace you want. So she actually confronts him later on. I thought it was kind of interesting because she knows him, because it's like, oh, like the wars and everything. It's like, yeah, my dad died in the battlefield, but yes, my mom, she kneeled before you, and I thought she was weak for it. And he was like, well, the fact of the matter is you can't kill me because you'll make me a martyr. So, and also she can't let anyone else know, because if Tree Crew finds out that he's Shade Hater, they'll follow him, because it's like, oh, we got our commander back. Yeah, especially because some of them kick it. Like, some of them are from the same tribe that he's from. So it's like, of course they're going to kick it with him. But also it's like, this will be their commander. He might be a past commander, but that's still a commander regardless. So it's like, I mean, makes you wonder, will it count as much, especially considering the flame is gone, but it's still like he is a commander. He technically within him, I guess. Well, because he's the only like commander that's there, because I was about to say it's not like every other commander that existed before him or the other commanders that died. Like they kind of died with the flame, so he's the only one that kind of hung on data wise. So, but Indra's kind of got her own plans about it. She's, once again, not telling anybody because she doesn't want to take the chance it might go to the wrong people. So she's getting Jackson to cut out the mind drive. So this way he can never back himself up or either get resurrected. So it's like, this is the end of you. This is the one life. And the moment I get the chance, I am going to kill you. So the thing is, you can tell, like, it's going, once again, it's like 2 potential armies are here for him. Like, he's got the believers who would willing to kill themselves for him, which obviously he gets pissed because it's like, I think for one, it's like, how dare you do something I told you not, I didn't tell you to do. Also, you're my warriors. Like, the fact is, don't do something stupid like killing yourself. You die because I tell you to die for me, not just do it on your own. It's more so like, I'm the one in control. You listen to my damn words, type of situation. But also, once again, like, One Crew could easily be under his sway as well, him being a commander. So it's like, that's a whole nest egg of complicated stuff. And we still didn't even get a peek into what the hell happened to Clark, Raven, Jordan. It's like what their situation is. Once again, also like what happened to Gaia. So there's all of that. It's actually, in the grand scheme of things, it makes so much sense why this season is supposed to be 16 episodes. I'm like, there is so much shit going on. There is so much stuff going down in this season. You needed a slightly longer season to kind of finish. Like, this is going to be a bloated season. A lot of stuff is going down. Especially when we're going to be messing with time, too. That's just going to, woo. That's going to be a lot, dude. But regardless, I am very, very interested to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.